friend. We gather here to witness the origins of the very first garment for my Alice in Wonderland historical cosplay project. If you follow me on Instagram, you might already know that I've embarked on this project for my entry for this year's Foundations Revealed contest. The theme of this year is Once Upon a Time, and I've decided to recreate an outfit design for Alice in Wonderland I made in high school many moons ago. Actually, since it was my final year of high school and I technically only finished the drawing after I graduated, it hasn't really been terribly long, but shush. Our project for today is making a protective underlayer for the playing cards bodies in the drawing. Since I made the drawing before I knew anything about sewing or historical dress, some aspects need some changes, and the final product may not be exactly the same as my original design, but that is okay. So if you spend any time in the historical sewing community, wearing a structured garment or any type of corsetry without a protective underlayer is akin to blasphemy. So this will be our first order of business. I've decided to make an 18th century men's shirt inspired garment. I already made an 18th century shirt using the directions in Bernadette Banner's video that I will link above and in the description if you are interested. For this specific project, I changed the collar from rectangular to a ruffled collar. I shortened the sleeves, which were uncomfortably long in my original draft, and I took out the extra width in the body that would be gathered into the collar in Miss Banner's original video. Since the measurements are specific to each individual body, I cannot give you a pattern here, but you can screenshot the diagram in Bernadette's video and draft one for yourself. Like she said, it's just rectangles. For this recipe, you will need 2 bodice pieces, 2 sleeve pieces, 2 gussets, 2 cuffs, all of these small squares, 3 collar pieces, 4 suitably extra buttons of your choice. Not pictured are the velvet and lace trim I used to put in that extra sniff of pirate only seen in films. In hopes of saving time, I stitched the non-visible seams by machine. You can do this in any order you like, but let's start with sewing the side and the shoulder seams on the body. It is important to mark how much room you need to leave open for the sleeve plus the gusset, and for the slit at the bottom of the shirt. After measuring the gusset and the cuff slit placement, like we did with the body, I stitched the side seam. That was the fast part. Literally. All that's left takes approximately 2 eternities. It is first time to secure all of the thread ends. I also sewed up the cuff pieces, so these will also get tied off neatly. The sleeve consists of 3 parts: the sleeve piece itself, the cuff and the gusset. First we're going to set in the gusset at the top of the sleeve. I do this by hand. It is much less of a hassle than maneuvering it under the machine. I'm paying extra attention to make sure the corner where the gusset meets the body and the sleeve is extra neat to prevent any puckering or holes. be able to actually see it. So now that we've connected the gusset like this, and that part that was open, we have a shape that's sort of like this. Wait, let me just adjust the camera for you. So it's roughly just a straight shape, really, with a triangle shape attached on the end. At the end, this will all get pleated into the arm side on the top. This will get pleated into the cuff that is over here. The next step now, for me anyway, is to finish the slit over here. The cuff slit will just be sort of rolling them in and filling them down, but then smaller than this. We can start filling the sleeve seam as well, and then we'll be setting this into the body part. After flat filling the cuff slit, there will be a sort of weak point in the seam, as you can see. That is where all of the little squares will come in. I've pressed the edges in, and these will cover up all of the slits, including at the neck. After gathering and pinning the sleeve in place, it is now time to sew it to the cuff. The cuff is then turned around, the seam allowance turned in and steamed and pinned into place before whip stitching it together. I mark the seam allowance on the gusset and then, finally, set it into the body, again by hand. I then run another gathering thread through the part of the sleeve that is left and pin it into place. Once again, backstitch into place by hand. I finished the inside seam with a separate strip of fabric felled into place over the gathers. Now back back to the body part. We still need to finish those slits like we did on the sleeves, flat fell the seams of the gusset, the opening at the neck, and hem the bottom. At this point, I sewed on all of the reinforcement squares, 2 at the neck, 2 on each cuffs, and so on. It is time to measure the neck and cut out all of the collar pieces. I made the collar using 3 parts, 2 strips of fabric that were the right length, and 1 long strip twice the length that's needed. This long strip gets gathered down into the other 2. All of those layers are sewn together and pressed open to form the collar. Attach it to the neck the same way I did with the cuffs. Backstitch it into place, turn around, fold in the seam allowance and whip stitch it into place. The end is nigh, my friends, for all that is left to do are attaching trims and buttons. I used a narrow velvet ribbon to decorate the cuffs and for the loops for the buttons. I also sewed some onto the collar and left those ends a little longer to tie up if needed. Finally, the final act is to sew in place some lace trim on the shoulders and around the neckline. Oh, wait. Ah, yes, that's better.